most traders journal for absolutely nothing. And odds are you probably don't even know how to use data to scale your trading, right? Again, most traders, they tell you focus on your win rate, on your RR. Yes, that's good. But if you're not using that data to build a proper risk profile, it's really not going to get you anywhere. Why? Because without measuring the right data, you can't get anywhere. Just because you're tracking data doesn't mean you're tracking the right data. And even if you are, doesn't mean you're using it properly. So today, we're going to talk about expected value rate. Again, this metric, in my opinion, is the most important metric in trading because once you have this number, your real number, you can build different risk profiles for trading evals, passing evals, your personal account, whatever it is you want to do, right? So the formula for expected value is your win rate, right? Let's use my personal win rate, 60%. So 0.6 times my average win in terms of R. Okay, my average R is 3, right? So that ends up being 0.6 times 3 is 1.8 minus my percentage in losses. So if my win rate is 60%, let's do something crazy. 40% is my losing rate minus, we're going to do this, 0.4 times 1, right? Because again, my average loss is -1R. If you're managing your risk accordingly, it should be the same. So, boom, that's going to give us 0.4. So that means that my expected value is 1.4R per trade. What does this mean? It means that over a sample of trades, I'm going to be making around 1.4R per trade, which is pretty good, right? If your expected value is positive, that means that you are a profitable trader. Now, how do you use this? Take a screenshot, take notes, whatever you need to do, because I'm the reading alts, right? So, if your expected value is positive, you're in the money. But how do we scale this, right? How do we use this metric to go even higher? So, if we have a low expected value, what does that mean, right? It means that our EV is equal to or less than 1. So our EV is less than or equal to 1. Therefore, we know that, hey, odds are per trade our R is going to be less. Therefore, R equals less, right? Again, because if our expected value is under 1, that means that for every trade, we're making 0.5 more, right? So if you want to scale quickly, you need higher risk. Why? Because, hey, if you want to go further on evals, if you want to take it more aggressive, right? And you know your expected value per trade is 0.5R. Well, guess what? If your average R, right, however much you're risking is, let's say, $200, well, then per trade, if your expected value is 1 or less, you're going to be making an estimated $200 or less per trade. Therefore, if you want to pass it quicker, well, first of all, you need to understand your drawdown and your account type, right? Because also in fundeds, you can't go too aggressive before blowing them, right? You want to give it at least a 6 to 7 trade lifespan. But let's say, okay, if my expected value, let's say, equals 0.8, right? Then what I know I can do is, hey, if I want to go aggressive, I want to risk $1,000 per trade, 1K, and then my average expected value is going to be $100 per trade, right? Let's say that you take what do you want to say, 5 trades, you're going to end up making $4,000. Also understand that you're going to lose. So that's why risk management is going to be really important, right? However, if we have a high expected value, then we can start playing. And again, if you have a low expected value, I would recommend do anything possible that you can to raise it. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of tricks after explaining this on how you can raise your expected value quickly without having to change your strategy or your edge simply by gathering a bit more data and adapting to the data. But if we had a high expected value, I know my handwriting is crazy good. It's down, broken arm. I got an excuse. But if we have a high expected value, right? Let's say that our expected value is equal to or more than 1, right? Then we can start playing around. Again, my personal expected value, we saw the example, is 1.4R, right? So 1.4R. That means that for every 1K that I risk, right? Every grand that I risk, I get 1.4. Okay, so then here's what I want to do, right? When it comes to a funded account, I want to build a buffer and I want to scale it with low risk, right? Let's say we got a 150K account, right? So we got a 150K account. We get a drawdown of $4,500. Okay, let me risk 500 bucks per trade, right? So I'm going to risk 500, right? That is a good amount. So if I'm risking 500 bucks per trade, That means that my average trade expectancy, right, 500 times 1.4, that's going to be 720. If I really don't fact check me on that, but around 720 bucks, right? So then that means that I'm going to make 720 per trade, right? 720 per trade. So what does this tell me, right? It tells me that in around, what do you want to be, right? It's 720 times 2, that's 1400 times 4, that's 2800. So in around 6 trades, right, I'm going to build a buffer, right? So in around 6 trades, right, I should be building my buffer. However, if I understand that and if I know how that's going to be working, well, then I know that once I get past here, then I can start increasing my risk a bit more. And I can start playing around with it a bit more, right? And what this tells me is, hey, let's say I'm able to bring, right, again, this is a bit harder to get here, but let's say I'm able to bring my funded accounts to a balance of, again, we started at 150K, the drawdown stop trading here, and now my current balance is going to be 156, right? I'm assuming I don't take any payouts from here yet. Well, I'll have $6,000 account to play with. And if I know that my expected value is at a 1.4, okay, let me start increasing the risk and increasing the risk, right? And then once you build a big enough of a buffer, you can start trading a lot more aggressively, which is going to allow me, again, if I understand my expected value, do it. As long as I'm not losing more than a single R, all right, that's the most important thing. Let's say your R is 500 bucks. You cannot afford to lose more than that. The trade that you do, you messed up, like big time. And you got to make sure that your trades are actually with your edge and not just taking random trades. Like you actually got to be disciplined and not be a fucking dickhead and just do dumb stuff, right? Because if you can do this, it's super easy to scale your accounts. Again, the reason I was able to scale my FFN account so large, the reason I was able to get 20K from a single TPT account, and why the personal account is doing so well right now, is because I've mastered the expected value, right? But what can I do to raise my expected value? Well, again, there's 2 metrics in the expected value. There's a win rate, and then there's the average win loss, right? So in order to raise your expected value, you need to lose less. Like and subscribe. Nah, okay, the win rate, right? Again, if you understand your strategy, something that I would recommend for the win rate is get your setups, right? A plus. And again, we're going to dive deep into this, right? And again, A plus setups and then A setups, right? And then no trade. So when it comes to A plus and A setups, right? Here's the thing, right? You need to make sure that you understand that these are both profitable, the A plus and the A. If it is not one of two, I'm going to go ahead. And this is not like, oh, A plus setup means it's a good trade. Like, all of Twitter has it fucking wrong. So don't listen. Again, a lot of guys out there, they know a lot about trading, but they're, for example, guys like, they were saying, oh, A plus setups don't exist. It doesn't matter. They do that. Like, shut up, bro. Okay, just fucking Friesen back for a second. Because if A plus setup, right, and this is the importance of understanding this, if we have a setup, right, let's say that we have setup ABD, right? Like each one of these being a different confluence. So if setup ABD gives me an average expected value of 1.2, but then we have setup XYZ, XYD, let's say, right, gives me an EV of 2.4, right? What does this tell me? Does this mean I need to stop trading setup ABD? No, because it is profitable. It simply means that when you see setup XYD, you need to be risking more because your expected value is higher. So even then, right, once you have your expected value of your edge, you need to start getting the expected value of your setups, because that's how you're going to raise your overall expected value, right? If you're risking heavier on the setups that have a higher expected value, and you're risking less on the setups that, hey, they're still profitable, but the expected value is not as high, well, your overall expected value is going to go higher, right? Because if you're risking, right, 500 bucks on these setups, cool. On average, per trade, you're going to be making, what do you want? Like 600 bucks? So equals 600 on average, right? But then on this shit, if I see that this is so good and that the expected value on these ones are like just through the roof, dude, I'm going to risk $1,000. And then I'm going to end up making 2,400, right? So now tell me which one is better, right? Oh, are you going to look at me in the face and tell me there's no A plus setups when you look at the fucking math? No, you'd be dumb to say that. Now, that's how you, and what does this have to do with win rate, right? Once you understand these two, anything that is outside of here, any setup that, oh, it could be here, it could play out like this, it could, you do not need to take that. And that's how you're going to increase your win rate, because you're only going to be focusing on the setups that have yielded you a high expected value. Does that mean you're going to lose trades? Yes. Does that mean you're going to have losing streaks? Yes. Does that mean that you should take other trades to see what might work better? No, because if you know that these two setups are your peak expected value, that's all you need to worry about. At least for me, I have two setups that I use, right? I have break and continue at a bookmap level, and with structure, with rejection, that is my lower expected value. And then I have rejection at a high options level with a volume event and a bookmap level involved, right? Whether that's targeting or rejection, and that's my bread and butter. So that's the data I use to scale further, right? So that's how we're going to increase our win rate and how we're going to raise our overall expected value by breaking down our top setups. So now that we know that, let's go into our average win-loss rate. Your average win and your average loss is made up by how much you risk and your risk to reward, right? Again,
and social validated.
Shut up. But if I see that, hey, this you can only control it so far, right? But this, you can control it a lot, right? Something that a good friend of mine, Roger, he told me, he's the one that showed me a lot of this, is you can actually measure how much into drawdown your setups that are going, right? So let's say that you have a trade, right? And you see that you're going to grab your trade, right? Let's say you take your entry here, your stop loss is here, and then your take profit is all the way down here. And then price starts moving, right? It goes up here, down here, up here, down here. Okay, yeah, well, you went into drawdown in this area, right? But what you're going to do is you're going to grab a Fibonacci, and you're going to put it from your stop loss all the way to your entry point. And you're going to divide it into three, right? Boom. This is going to be your first third, first, second, and then third, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to divide into three, and you're going to see how much drawdown you're going into. Okay, so on this trade, it had take profit, but I went 1/3 into drawdown, right? Trade 2, I went 2/3 into drawdown. Trade 3, I went 1/3 into drawdown, right? And you're going to see that. And then if you notice that in all of your setups, or most of your setups, you're going into drawdown, guess what? Instead of taking your entry here, you're going to start waiting for price to reach here, and you're going to start taking your entry around this area. Why? Because now your average risk to reward rate, we're seeing that, hey, instead of taking my entry here, right, and getting, let's say this is a 1 to 2R, right? 1 to 2. Well, now I'm going to take my entry here, and now because of that, I'm getting a 1 to 3, right? And you're automatically going to increase your risk to reward without having to change your strategy, without having to do any magic, simply by understanding how much drawdown your positions go into before playing out. So that's how you're going to increase your average risk to reward. If you can pump those numbers up, the expected value is heavily going to increase as long as you're holding your trades, and you're going to become better. So that was expected value. Those are the tools you can use to improve it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. No question is just stupid. Actually, that's wrong. There's some really dumb questions. So guys, please make sure that when you're asking something, do a bit of research before. Like, don't ask like, hey, well, so what's a risk to reward? Like, come on, man. But appreciate you guys watching this video. If you want more videos like this, let me know. And go watch other videos. They're kind of cool. I hope. I don't know. See you guys.